So in other words, it's interactive. So I'll be asking you a lot of questions. Don't feel pressure to have the answers, but we're going to get through today. The plan here is to start with chapter one and to get a sense of these two sections right here. The Americas and Europe on the brink of change. Okay. Within the chapter, the Americas, Europe, and Africa before 1492. Okay. Uh, can anyone tell me, by the way, why would they choose the date 1492? Leo, does anyone know the what's the significance of the date 1492, do you think?
I don't really know, but maybe it's like that early because they wanted to like know about Native Americans, how they did stuff.
Okay, good. Good idea, Leo. And Lenny, what do you think? Why would they pick the date 1492?
Because I think that's when Christopher Columbus arrived in America.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good. Now, does anyone know um, who Christopher Columbus was?
Christopher Columbus was like an Italian explorer supporting Spain to find like a new world.
Excellent. Okay, very good. In 1492. Excellent. So that's essentially where it's coming from. Good answer, Andrew. So our goal in this first chapter is to address three questions basically. One is what was Europe like, the place where Christopher Columbus came from, as Andrew described, an Italian navigator and sailor who embarked from Spain and landed in America in 1492. Excellent answer, by the way. And what was in the Americas, or who was in the Americas when he arrived? Those are two questions. So, what was happening in Europe leading up to 1492? What was happening in the Americas up to 1492? And why did Columbus want to voyage west and risk his life and lots of money for the Spanish government to go west? Before we look at the chapter itself, does anyone know why Christopher Columbus would want to sail westward? What was he looking for? Does anyone know?
Yeah, he was looking for like stuff from like the China like spices.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good. So he was looking for. Now, why? Here's a great answer, Leo, by the way. Now, does anybody know, and we're going to get into this later, but it's great to share your knowledge now. Does anybody know why they started venturing west instead of going east? I mean, they went east, but why did they start looking west instead of east?
Still, they think the Earth was round, so they tried to find a new route to China.
Good
Or
job. Yeah, don't forget. And well, some people still think the Earth is flat, but that's a different story. um, but yes, the world discovered the world was round, and they wanted, again, as Leo mentioned, to find a route to China, but also India as well. And what was it, by the way, that attracted Europeans to China and to India?
Spices.
Yeah, very good. Spices. Silk would become a huge draw later on as well. So many items. China was much further advanced than Europe at this time. Okay, great questions. Now, when he got to North America, when he so-called discovered America, Okay. There are people there, obviously, already. And historians have had some interesting ideas about the people who were there. And I'm going to show you this. So I'm going to read out these points. And before we dive into the Americas, and I want you to give me your ideas, your impressions, true or false, etc., about who was in the Americas before the time of Columbus. So this first quote says, before the coming of the Europeans, the Indian population was probably small and thinly scattered. Um, Aiden, do you think this is accurate? When by the time the Europeans arrived in the Americas, was the Indian population very small, especially compared to Europe? And was it thinly scattered, spread out all over? What do you think?
Like when they first arrived,
Yeah, in 1492.
it was probably like there was a lot of Indians.
Okay, good. So, okay, so maybe this assessment by this Alfred K. Kroger was wrong, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay, good. Anyone else have any ideas on this? Was this quote accurate, or as Aiden has suggested, inaccurate?
I think was inaccurate because like the Indian population was much bigger than when the Europeans arrived because the Europeans had enslaved and killed off them in various wars.
Okay, very good. Good answer. Okay. And there are other factors we'll talk about definitely in chapter 2. So, okay, excellent. Does anyone in the group believe this quote is accurate? And it's okay if you do, because most historians up to a certain point believe this. Does anyone agree with this quote? Okay, excellent. Okay, I'm going to go to the second one, the second point. And we're going to confirm this by reading, of course, the chapter. The Indian population in the Americas before 1492 simply lived in the wild and did not live in cities. Let's see here. Aiden, what do you think? Do you think that's true or false?
The third question.
Yeah, the Indian population in the Americas before 1492 lived in the wild and did not live in cities. What do you think? Do you think that's
That's
true or
probably
false?
accurate because I don't
Okay,
think they had cities before.
okay, interesting. Okay. Does anyone that's good, Aiden. Does anyone else have an answer? Either the same or different? Does everybody agree with Aiden? Or does anyone disagree? Does anyone believe that the Indian population in the Americas did live in cities? Okay, we'll find out if Aiden is right. Okay. The next question is, the Indian population in the Americas did not rely on agriculture for food. They were nomadic hunters and gatherers. In other words, they didn't farm. They relied on hunting, okay, hunting animals, and gathering food, berries, etc. Lenny, would you say that's true or false?
Um, I think it's um it's true
Okay,
because they
okay,
mainly just like hunted meat.
okay, okay. Interesting, good. And let's see here.
Wait,
Albert, what do you think? Do you
oh,
think the Indian population in the Americas did not rely on agriculture? That they were rather nomadic hunters and gatherers exclusively? What do you think, Albert?
Um,
Oh, you can turn your cameras on. Somebody was asking that you can turn your cameras on so I can, unless you feel really uncomfortable, but you can turn them on if you like. So what do you think, Albert? Do you think the Indian population engaged in farming, or do you think they basically focused on hunting and gathering?
I think they focused on hunting and gathering.
Okay, good. Excellent. Okay, interesting. Okay, and lastly, the old world. Oh, sorry, Andrew, you had an idea?
Yeah, I mean, it is said that they farmed a little
Okay.
because like it is said like when like Jamestown formed that the Indians helped people in
Wow.
Jamestown grow the native crops.
Okay, Andrew, good reference to Jamestown. Well done. Okay. Uh so yeah, they helped the Jamestown residents from Europe, which implies that they knew about farming. Okay.
Was
Excellent. Good answer.
with
Gary. Oh, hi, Gary. I'll add your name to the list.
How to do
Did you
that?
Gary, we're just going through a list about uh the Americas and some of what kind of people they were, and it's asking some questions, okay?
Okay.
The last question here was the old world developed great structures like the Egyptian pyramids, the Great Wall of China, the extensive Silk Roads, which we'll look at, Roman aqueducts, great technology. Uh, True or false? The Indians before Columbus did not do such things. They did not build big structures. They did not develop roads. They did not have running water.
It,
True or false?
it is false because like
Oh,
in the Mayan civilization they built big pyramids to worship gods, and then I'm pretty sure there's like few small roads.
okay, good. Anyone else want to add to that? Great answer, Andrew. Anyone else want to add to what Andrew said? Yeah, so they did make big structures. We'll find that out. Okay. Okay. Um, let's move forward. Okay. Now, in theory, people from Europe end up in Europe, in China, in Asia, they, I, in theory, came from Africa. Now, the question is, first question is, how do you think people got to the Americas?
Ships.
Pardon me?
Ships.
Oh, okay, Leo suggests ships. Okay, very good. So ships and any other ideas?
So are you saying how the Native Americans came to America or the Europeans?
Native Americans.
Oh, so I think the Native Americans came from Russia through at that time there was like a slight ice bridge from Russia to America, so like they crossed that.
Very good. They call that the land bridge. And there's a little map here. I'll show you that here. Okay. Although I believe it was Leo mentioned that some they did actually later on come by ship as well.
So the Native Americans went through the Bering Strait, and then because it was like ice, and then the Europeans came by ship.
Okay, very good. Very good. And so you have over here, you have basically what is now Russia, Siberia. And as both Leo and Andrew mentioned, coming across, they were able to cross here across a land bridge because during what was called the Ice Age. This was all frozen over, and this allowed them to cross over on land. but they did actually later on cross over by ship as well, by waters, canoes, etc. Now, here's a question for everyone here. There's different theories on this, but why would they travel from what is now Asia to what is now Alaska? What would drive them or pull them into the Americas, do you think? Um, Lenny, what do you think? Why would people travel all the way from this position here in what is now Asia? Why would they travel to the Americas, do you think?
Probably because probably like something happened in like Asia and like it was like affecting them.
Okay, so something bad?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, for example, good, good. Um, Aiden, any other ideas? Why would people
Uh-huh.
move from Asia to the Americas, do you think?
I think they're curious and like like basically humanity hadn't existed that long ago at that time because so like I think they were like really curious and wanted to explore because humanity emerged in somewhere in Africa.
Okay, interesting. Okay. So it could be curiosity. It could be something bad happening. Maybe they're running out of food. Any other reasons from the group?
Remember that they came from like Africa, and then they like passed through from Africa using, and then they made it into Asia, and then they just wanted to keep on exploring, and they wanted to like find a better civilization and more
Okay.
sources of like food and water. So they decided to go to the Bering to find new land.
Okay, good answers. Okay. And a lot of this is theoretical because we're talking tens of thousands of years ago. So great answers, everybody. There could be push factors, meaning push factors being maybe, as one of you suggested, running out of food, maybe disease, uh, horrible climate change, or it could be pull factors like curiosity, or maybe they're following animals. Don't forget, back then, these people follow animals around to eat. So maybe they were following animals across the land bridge, their source of food. They're chasing food. Lenny, you had an idea?
Um, I think they came on because like they were hunting bison and the bison came to America.
Good answer. Okay.
Woolly mammoth.
Ah, woolly mammoth. Yeah, those. Try to. That's a good meal right there. Ethan, you had an idea?
They were trying to get to South America.
Yeah, they would end up in South America for sure. To warmer climates, which I'm sure they appreciated at the time. Now, this covers, great answer. This covers a lot of time. Humans crossing the land bridge, Asia to North America, they don't know exactly when, but we're talking 13,000 to 7,000 BCE. Does anyone know what BCE stands for, by the way?
Before Common Era.
I think it was before I think before like Jesus Christ was born.
Yeah, they used to call it just BC, before Christ. But because, more and more we're trying to be more diverse before the Common Era instead of just focusing on the Christian references. So, yeah, before the Common Era. So, we're in 2025 CE, which is Common Era. So, we're talking about 15,000 years ago. Yeah, long time. Okay, so great points. So, um, they also has they moved. We mentioned they were nomads. Now, does anyone know what the term nomad means?
The term nomads means they farmed animals.
Close,
Wait, no.
close.
And they go They followed animals where where they go.
Very good. Yeah. They were essentially hunters and gatherers. And it would depend on the environment. Some would be more hunters. There'd be more gathering. It really depended. In cold climates, it'd be more hunting. Now, as they moved south, as one of you mentioned, I believe it was Ethan, down into Middle America and South America, they began engaging more and more in the domestication of plants and animals, which is otherwise known as the agricultural revolution. What is agriculture, by the way? Albert? When we say agriculture, what do we mean? Andrew?
It means farming.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, we'll talk about it more pretty soon, but there's a transition that happened both in the so-called Old World, Asia, Europe, but also happened in the Americas. A transition from nomadic life, okay, transition from a nomadic life of hunting gathering, gradually to people who did farming. Farming meant growing plants and animals, but also the domestication of plants and animals. So, a quick question to all of you, just a quick point. What would be some of the advantages of farming and domesticating animals rather than hunting and gathering? What would be some advantages?
The
Lenny. Oh, oh, so Lenny?
Like you don't have to like go everywhere and start like hunting animals like all day. You could just like plant them and you could just get them.
Okay, has its advantages. Very good. And sorry, Leo, you had an idea?
Yeah, so they like could just stay at one place and they didn't have to keep on moving. So
Okay.
they um went to like North America and decided to do agriculture because it was really easy and they didn't have to keep on chasing and like waste their energy because there was risks by eat like if there was a big animal they could like some people could die.
Ah, okay. Interesting points.
It's really easy.
Very good. Does anyone want to add to those points, or is there some disadvantages to adopting a farming lifestyle? Because there's actually some. We'll explore it later, but there's some pros and cons to. Okay, Aiden.
So like during like when you're like farming, get like sort of wait until like a certain like harvesting season to get like crops.
Excellent. Good idea. Okay, very good. So you're very dependent. You're also dependent on things like seasonal change, of course. Living in Canada, we're quite aware that farming right now is not going to happen. It's a little bit cold. Okay. Now, there's different settlements throughout the Americas. Some people stayed in North America, what is now Canada and the United States, and Inuit. Some people moved into what's called Mesoamerica. Does anyone know why they call this area right here Mesoamerica?
Because there was North America and South America and that was the middle area.
Very good. And Meso means middle. Very good. So you had Mesoamerica. Oh, Lenny had a point.
A mezzo means middle in Italian.
Oh, good job. Wow, excellent. Good reference. Okay. So we had North America, Mesoamerica, otherwise known as Middle America, middle being mezzo being Italian, middle and Italian. And then we have this along the west coast of South America. Okay, we have the along the Andes mountain range. Now, a quick question. People settle in certain places. Like, for example, the oldest civilizations in the world, say China, the Indus Valley in India, Mesopotamia, which is now Iraq, Egypt. People settled in certain areas for a reason. They had certain advantages. Can anyone guess or suggest why Amerindians would settle in Mesoamerica or along the Andes mountain range? Why would they settle in these particular areas? Could be various reasons. Any ideas?
Near water.
Ah, very good. You need water. Excellent. Any other ideas? So near water, I mean, most earliest civilizations were so-called river civilizations. And if you want to do farming, which many of these communities did, you had access to water, good soil, and land, access to, for those of them still doing nomadic life, you need access to certain wildlife and animals. And there could be strategic reasons as well. Don't forget there's competition among some of these groups. Okay, so Mesoamerica was comprised. Let me show you a little map here, really quickly. Was comprised of some civilizations that became quite large. One of you mentioned the Mayans, but there are also other groups as well. Does anyone know the names of the other groups?
Aztec.
Ah, okay, good. Aztec, very good. There we go. Here's a map. Lenny?
The Inca.
Very good. Okay, you guys know your stuff. Well done. Okay. So you had the Aztecs. Okay. Up here, what is middle to southern Mexico? The Mayans and the Incas along the Andes Mountains. Now, earlier we talked about, did most Amerindians, when Christopher Columbus arrived, did they live in cities? Did they have technology? Some of you suggested they didn't, and some of you suggested that they did. That in fact, they did live in cities, and they did have significant technology, and they're much more perhaps advanced than people used to assume. And it all started, as far as these large civilizations, with a civilization called the Olmec culture. Okay. And they happened a long time ago, about 5,000 BC. And they had certain traits that cultures, the Mayan cultures, Aztec cultures, the Inca cultures would also have. So there are some shared traits. They had many things in common, in other words. Just like the Europeans at this time, too. Europeans started to develop certain traits, languages, habits, social structure, etc. Now, one trait that was developing here was a religious or belief system. And generally speaking, the people in the Americas abided by a polytheistic, that's a big word, a polytheistic belief system. Does anyone know what the word polytheistic means?
Belief in many gods.
Oh, good. So where did you learn that, Leo?
At school.
Okay, good. And can you give me an example? Did you study any polytheistic systems?
Egyptian civilization. They believed in many gods like Ra or Osiris. They didn't only believe in one. And then Tutankhamun, he believed in one, and then Tut changed that.
Oh, very good. Okay, excellent. Good for you. Gary, you had something to add.
The gods of Egyptians are basically just a family drama.
Oh,
All of them
yes.
just
Okay,
relate
good
to each
point.
other.
That's right. Great point. A lot of these in these polytheistic systems, there was a lot of they were very human-like in that they had little fights among each other. Sorry, Gary, you wanted to add something else? Okay.
No.
Can anyone? Okay, so Egypt, for example, so that's a common thread, by the way, between what was happening in the so-called Old World, which is uh, Africa, Asia, Europe, and what was happening in the New World. Can anyone suggest any other polytheistic systems besides the one in Egypt?
Mesopotamian,
Ah, there you go. Mesopotamia, very
they
good.
had the ziggurats.
Okay, excellent. Oh, Gary, you raised your hand again? So those are good examples. You had Mesopotamia, Egypt, uh, Greek later on. Ethan raised his hand. What did you
Tigers,
want to say? Sorry?
Tigers Euphrates River.
Yeah, yes. The Tigris Euphrates River is where Mesopotamia, the settlement there. So, like someone pointed out earlier, that's an excellent point that people were attracted to settle in river areas near water. Okay, so polytheistic. Now that's going to contrast. Keep that in mind, by the way. These polytheistic cultures would persist up until uh, Columbus arrived, and there would be a conflict in religious systems. Because in chapter 2, we're going to talk about that. You had a lot of polytheistic cultures predominating in the Americas and Europe. By the time of contact, 1492, had adopted something called the monotheistic culture, which we'll talk about very, very soon. Okay. Okay. So the Olmec culture, they created things like math, a calendar. So their technology is quite significant. Quickly, why would being able to practice math and to have a calendar, why would those be important things for a civilization, do you think?
Schools learn.
Okay, schools to learn. Very good. Gary, you had an idea?
Because then you would, if you had the calendar, you would probably know when it was time for winter season and which time it was for the harvest season and to prepare for winter.
Excellent. Very good. And math, of course, you could count the number of goods you had, how much you need to store for bad seasons. If there's trade, which happened, uh, the Olmec culture established trading networks. So math would be important there. And I'm sure all of you love math, right? Yeah, okay, yeah. So trading networks, if you're exchanging goods, it's good to know, be able to count, for example. Okay, excellent. So, you know, in the year 5000 BCE, approximately, the Olmec culture formed the basis or foundation for the culture some of you mentioned, which would be the Mayan, the Aztec, and the Inca. Now, in for the Maya, there was a great there's large scale agriculture and farming. Now, someone had mentioned earlier that one of the benefits is you don't have to chase animals. Uh, there's some security there. Another is that you can grow a population quickly, and that happened in Europe as well, by the way, where with the advent of agriculture and people staying in the same area, populations grew bigger and bigger. Gary, you wanted to add something?
Also, maybe because in the areas without hunting, maybe some people got killed by the animals.
Yes, of course. Excellent point. Yes. Yeah, I mean, some of these animals are kind of pretty scary. Woolly mammoth, cave bears, what have you. Some pretty scary animals. And agriculture allows you, among other things, more freedom. Instead of always chasing animals and always gathering food, you have certain people specializing in growing food. And you develop what's called surplus food, meaning you can actually get to a point where you're creating more food than you need to live. And that frees up people to do other things, to build things. And one of you mentioned those huge pyramids, Mayan pyramids. And you have more people to engage in religious activities as well. So, more agriculture, more food, more abundance leads to larger populations. So, as one of you mentioned, contrary to what a lot of Europeans thought at the beginning, that in the Americas, the American population was quite large, and there were actually quite large cities. Let's look at one city right here in the greatest city here in the Mayan community civilization. 100,000 people at this point in 500 CE. Would you say that's a big city at that time?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we're talking, don't forget, cities like Paris, like London in Europe, when we're just focusing on Europe for now, but there weren't too many cities, with the exception perhaps of Constantinople, which was Eastern Roman, that could match the size of some of these larger cities that were not nearby what's now Mexico City. So this goes way against some of the stereotypes that the Americas that we have assumed. The Americas indeed did have a large population, and some of the cities matched the biggest ones in Europe and elsewhere. Now, of course, for large civilizations, there's an increase, but sometimes there's a decline. For example, the Roman civilization. The Mayan civilization declined. And there's usually many, many factors. But can anyone guess why the Mayan civilization might have declined? And there could be many reasons. You can just throw them out. Because some civilizations grow, like the Roman civilization, Egypt.
I
So go
think
ahead.
because of environment issues and like disease and drought.
Very good. Excellent. And that's essentially what happened. Very good. And that is, has one of you mentioned, one of the disadvantages of an agricultural society is you're dependent on when things like drought, disease, bad weather, floods, when they happen, you're very, very vulnerable. So some of these large civilizations, some of them, by the time the Europeans got there, weren't as big as they used to be. And one of you, I believe it was Albert, had mentioned this structures like this. This is a large temple devoted to a certain god. Does this remind anyone of any structures in the so-called Old World?
Ziggurat,
Ah, ooh, who said? Well done, Leo. Ziggurats from where?
Mesopotamian,
Ah, good job. And ziggurats, very good. And what did ziggurats resemble? Also,
Ziggurats resemble the gods. Like
yeah, they
I
were
think at the
devoted to.
top of the
Sorry?
ziggurat is where the gods. They say where it's where. I think they think it's where the gods live.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they built them on top. So you have the ziggurats in Mesopotamia. You have the structures here in Mesoamerica and the Andes. In Egypt, of course, you have the pyramids. And what's interesting is that until, you could argue until 1492, there's some debates about that, but there is zero contact. So there's no way of, sharing these kind of technologies or knowledge. So it's quite interesting that they were building similar structures without the contact. And then, of course, you have, besides the Mayans, you have the Aztec. Now, they also had a huge city. Um, and Cortez, who is one of the Spanish explorers, um, saw it and he marveled at the city. Its size was about 200,000. And what was it, if you had to guess? I don't know if any of you know who Herman Cortez is. He's from Spain. And of course, he arrived after Columbus. What amazed him about this great city, this great Aztec city? What drew his attention and his excitement? Can anyone guess? It had lots of gold. And this is going to come into chapter 2, by the way. One of the reasons Spain wanted to invest so much later on was they saw cities like uh, in the Aztec Empire had lots and lots of gold, and gold was coveted, of course, in Europe. Okay, and cities like this have 200,000. I mean, they rivaled or even surpassed many of the cities in Europe. Now, when you think of technology, um, I asked you earlier, do you think people in the Americas had decent technology? Because in Europe, you had the Roman Empire, they had water systems, they had places for baths. Um, does any did the Aztecs and Mayans, do you think they had decent technology? What do you think, Andrew?
They had access to some technology, but like not like the European type technology because they don't have access to guns, but they do have access to like they're a relatively advanced civilization compared to the our Native Americans.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Good point. Okay. Let's see here. Lenny. Oh, Gary raised his hand. What do you think, Gary?
Basically, the indigenous people, you can see them sacrificing people, and basically, they're sacrificing people because
Ooh,
they believe more in gods than probably their economy, and they hope to please the gods. But the Europeans, heck, they don't care about the gods. All they want to do is just get a better economy and become stronger.
okay, interesting. Very good. That's an interesting point. Um, at certain points in the old world, there were sacrifices, but that was definitely a practice that the Europeans noticed when they did see that. And later on, we'll discover how they kind of used that as a way to justify conquering and trying to convert um, South Americans as well. But as uh, someone mentioned not too long ago, I think it was Andrew, they didn't have guns like the Europeans, but they did have intricate water systems. They could transport water through irrigation for farming purposes. They had clean water for cleaning. They were actually cleaner, believe it or not, than the Spanish. The Aztecs bathed every single day, which was quite rare for this time of year. So they had some technologies. They didn't have wheels. They didn't have the wheel that was created in, I believe, the Sumerian culture a long time ago, Mesopotamia. But they did have some decent technologies, for sure. They also had developed intricate road systems, transportation routes. And can anyone suggest why it would be important to have intricate or widespread roads that people could use? Why is it important to have roads and other transportation routes? Any ideas? Aiden, what do you think? Why would it be important for a civilization to build roads? What would be some of the benefits for that?
Because like you can easily get like trade.
Ah, very good. It facilitates trade. Excellent. Very good. Excellent. Any other reasons? That's an excellent reason, Aiden. Lenny, what do you think?
I'm like so like roads were like much smoother like on regular like grass rocks, so like it's much smoother and easier to like for transportation.
Ah, very good. Okay, excellent. Good points, guys. Okay, good. And there might be some military advantages as well. Just like the Roman Empire, they had a very intricate, well-developed road system that would allow them to develop their empire, their reach of their power. Good answers, everybody. Trade, extending their political networks as well. Okay. Now the Inca, and we'll talk about this later on, but they had a social structure. We'll talk about that more uh, next time. But they had a very top-down social structure. It certainly wasn't a democracy. In North America was more what is now the United States and Canada, was a lot more like what people imagined at the beginning. In other words, they were more spread out, more nomadic. There was less agriculture, less growing. The populations were sparser. Any idea why? Can anyone suggest why in, say, Canada, especially the northern United States, why would agriculture play a smaller role than in Mesoamerica and what is now South America? Any ideas? Uh, Ethan, what do you think?
For the
Yeah, why is there less farming in what is now Canada than, say, in Mesoamerica?
They didn't have enough crops.
Yeah, or there could be other reasons too. Very good. Okay, that's a good point, Ethan. Very good. Lenny, any ideas? Why would there be less in this area on this map here? Why would there be less farming and agriculture?
Because they're like nomadic and they like move around a lot.
Yeah, maybe there was more. It could be a lot of reasons. Maybe the climate was a bit colder. Don't forget they come over during the Ice Age. Climate could have been colder back then. Also, um, uh, yeah, basically it's warmer down south, etc. And there's more game. There's more, larger herds of animals. There could be a lot of reasons. But for whatever reasons, they were more, as Lenny suggested, they were spread out, more nomadic. So you didn't get the big cities that you did in uh, in Mesoamerica in the Andes. Okay, so now we're going to shift gears a little bit to Europe, and this happened basically in the Middle Ages. Um, Big changes were happening in Europe that would lead to more exploration and would basically lead to Europe and colliding, you could say, with the Americas. Now they use the term the Middle Ages, which can be a bit controversial. But why do they call it the Middle Ages? Anyone know? Why the middle?
Because probably it was like really essential in like history, and then lots of things happened.
Okay, good. That's a good point, Leo. Any other ideas? Well, one reason they call it the middle is because it's arbitrary, but it came after the fall of the Roman Empire in the late 600s. That date varies. And what's called the Renaissance, which happened, it depends who you ask, around 1450, 1500. So the Middle Ages, middle is between the Roman time of the Romans and time of the Renaissance. Okay, good. So the main institution um, that dominated Europe was the Christian church. It pretty much came to control most of Europe. And that was a bit different than uh, the Americas because the Christian church followed what was called a monotheistic culture. And that's what happens, by the way, when Europe and the Americas come together. You have two different belief systems, two different religious systems coming together. And one is monotheistic and one is polytheistic. Can anyone suggest what monotheistic means?
Belief in
Theistic means believing in only one God.
Ah, very good. Okay, excellent. Good. So that would play a big role because to give a highlight into the next couple classes is that especially when Spain came over, but also Portugal, there was a belief that the monotheistic system, in the Christian sense, of one God was deemed to be superior to the polytheistic systems of the Americas. And that would be used as a justification uh, for um, for conquering Asia. So what I want to do now, by the way, is to give you some questions, some basic questions for your homework, has been requested. And we're going to, by the way, leave off. I'll put this in the question and answers here. Right here, good. There we go. Okay, can everybody see those questions? Okay, so for next time, by the way, great input. We're going to continue with focusing on Europe next time. We'll move faster as the classes progress, but I wanted to get to know everybody first and make sure we got some foundational knowledge established. So the questions for you for next class are, I give you 5 of them, and some of them are quite short. And I'll put it in the chat in a few seconds. But the first one is a question you looked at already. Before the coming of the Europeans, the Indian population was probably small and thinly scattered. Give your reasons why you agree or disagree. The second question addresses the transition from nomadic to agricultural society. How did that change Indian societies? Define polytheism and monotheism. Okay, that's very important, and because that has implications for the clash of civilizations. And 2 other questions at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is put these questions in the chat. Okay.